All right, thank you. This is the March 31st, 2020 meeting of the Board of Education, special meeting. I ask that I'm going to go through the roster and see who's here. I am here. Rob Scarito, are you here? Rob Scarito? Thank you. Thank you. Gary?
I'm here.
Thank you. Larry?
I'm here.
Jim Kiley?
Here.
Mike Foscarino?
Here.
And Stacy?
Here.
Dennis?
Yes.
Dennis
Dennis is a yes.
Don Murphy is here.
Yes.
Joe Tasman?
Here.
Jackie?
Here.
Carolyn?
Here.
Did I miss anyone from central office?
No.
All right, just Lori, you're on, correct?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, and as far as legal counsel, we have, tell me who's here for legal counsel?
Gene Barnowski.
Okay,
You have Allison, Lindsay, and Jean. Hello.
Allison, Lindsay, and Jean, great. Okay, this is the, as I said, March 31st, 2020 special meeting of the Board of Education. I ask that you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. There's a resolution that is on the agenda as number 2. I'm going to read the resolution into record. Whereas Executive Order number 202.1, signed by Governor Andrew Cuomo on March 12, 2020, suspended Article 7 of the Public Officers Law through April 11, 2020, to the extent necessary to permit a public body to meet without permitting the public in-person access to the meeting, and authorize public bodies to hold public meetings remotely by conference call or similar service, provided that the public can view or listen to the meeting and that the meeting is recorded and later transcribed. Now, therefore, be it resolved that during the period of the time that Executive Order 202.1 or any subsequent executive order extending the suspension of Article 7 of the Public Officers Law is in effect, the public is not permitted to attend meetings of the Board of Education in person and may view and or listen to a meeting pursuant to instructions made available on the district's website. And be it further resolved that as required by Executive Order number 202.1, all meetings will be recorded and later transcribed. And be it further resolved that any requirement pursuant to any policy of the Board of Education of the Hauppauge Union Free School District that contradicts Executive Order 202 or this resolution, including public participation in public meetings, is hereby suspended. Do I have a motion to approve or pass the resolution?
So moved.
Mr. Scarito, thank you. Mr. Fortmeyer with the second. Discussion. I vote yay. Rob Scarito?
Yay.
Mr. Scarito votes yay. Gary?
Yay.
Gary votes yay. Larry Crappa?
Yay.
Larry votes yay. Jim Kiley? Jim Kiley?
Yay.
Jim Kiley votes yay, or I will say that instead. I think it's a little clearer. Michael Buscarino?
Aye.
Michael votes aye. Stacy?
Aye.
Stacy votes aye. The resolution is therefore passed. Again, I ask Lori that you make arrangements with Gene's office to have the proceedings transcribed by a proper court reporter. With that, there's a motion to go into executive session. Rob Scarito makes the motion. Gary with the second. The purpose of executive session is to discuss matters that bear on public safety and also to seek advice from counsel. Any discussion on the motion? I vote aye. Rob Scarito?
Aye.
Ralph Scarito votes aye. Gary?
Aye.
Gary votes aye. Larry?
Aye.
Larry votes aye. Jimmy?
Aye.
Jimmy votes aye. Mike?
Aye.
Mike votes aye. And Stacy?
Aye.
Stacy votes aye. We are retired into executive session. The public portion of the streaming portion of the meeting will resume at 8 o'clock p.m. sharp. Don, please have us taken off live stream. Thank you. We now reconvene the public portion of tonight's meeting. Let's see where we are here. 5, the adoption of minutes from the budget community meeting of March 24th. March 31st, 2020 meeting of the Board of Education. Steve, can your phone is still open? Thank you. Mr. Scarito with the motion, Mr. Fortmeyer with the second. Any discussion concerning the minutes? Seeing none, I vote aye. Mr. Scarito?
Aye.
Mr. Scarito votes aye. Mr. Fortmeyer?
Aye.
Fortmeyer votes aye. Dr. Crappa?
Aye.
Dr. Crappa votes aye. Mr. Kiley?
Abstain.
Mr. Kiley abstains. Mr. Buscarino?
Aye.
Mr. Buscarino votes aye. Ms. Weisberg?
Aye.
Ms. Weisberg votes aye. Jimmy, microphone, please. There is no consent agenda tonight. We're going to go right to discussion matters. COVID-19 is the first discussion matter. Dennis, could you give us a little bit of a rundown of where we are as far as COVID-19?
Not many changes to our district. Biggest notification I think for the public is that the Department of Health has changed their protocol. When this started, when there were very few cases on Long Island, they asked us to call them and notify them if we had a student or an employee that tested positive, and that's no longer their protocol. They won't be taking our calls, and they will not be notifying the district. They get all their positive results directly from the labs or the hospitals that are testing, and they will contact the district if they have an employee that had a history of close contact with other employees, so that we can notify anybody who may have been in close contact with an infected person.
So are any of our staff in contact with district children at this point?
No. The only people we have in the district is child care, but those are scope employees.
Okay.
We do have custodial unit members in the buildings where scope is, but they should have no reason to have direct contact with any of the children.
Okay. Do we have a protocol in place for if one of those individuals that may even have tangential contact with kids test positive, and a way to let parents know?
Yeah, we submitted to the board a protocol for our employees. So first and foremost, we would follow that protocol. And then Joe and I would work together to determine if the employee was near the scope facilities or not. And then we would take whatever action the circumstances would warrant.
And if it warrants reaching out to parents, we have a mechanism to do that?
Yeah, we would be able to notify scope, and they would either take over the contact from there because it's their program, or we would find out who the registrants are and help them make the contact.
And are they screening these employees before the workday begins?
I'm sorry, Mike, I missed the beginning of your question.
Are they screening those employees before the workday begins?
At scope?
Yes.
Yes.
You're asking about the scope employees, Michael?
Yeah.
I don't know for sure. I can follow up on that. I will make a guess. The answer is yes, because in their conversations with us, they made it very clear that they would be screening all the children on their way into childcare. So I would imagine they're following a similar protocol with their employees, but I will call Scope tomorrow morning and follow up.
Thank you. So Dennis, just to confirm, other than the scope people and a custodian who may be in the building around kids, none of our other staff, employees, what have you, are interacting with children on any kind of close basis?
That's correct. I can't think of any reason where that would be happening. Because everything is virtual learning now. So there's no sports going on. There's no after-school clubs going on, obviously. So I can't think of a situation where that would be the case.
Okay. Anything further on COVID-19 from administration? Anything further from the board on COVID-19? All right, moving to distance learning. Dan or Don, can you guys give us a rundown of where we are? I know we're only 2 days in, but how are we doing so far? Are there bumps? What are the complaints? What are the successes? What are the failures? What haven't we expected? So on and so forth.
I'd like to ask Don to kick that off for you, David.
Thank you.
Yeah, so like you said, we're 2 days in to our efforts. I would say for the most part, we've been hearing favorable feedback. We've been polling teachers with surveys, asking them how it went yesterday. We had a meeting today as an admin team where we shared a highlight and a concern or a curiosity. Much of those concerns and curiosities relate to some guidance that hopefully is forthcoming from the state related to regents exams and things like that. In terms of yesterday and I guess today, a challenge for teachers and students again is related to just scheduling and the structure of time. Some of the feedback has been, just that when students are accessing their work throughout the day and teachers are expected to be responsive, it's a new paradigm shift. So that is something that they're juggling. Many teachers reported back. We took some survey. We gathered some survey data about the tools that they're using through Google Classroom, whether it be recorded videos, whether it be using Google Meet, whether it be Edpuzzle, any number of other tools, depending on the level. We received good feedback about some of the videos that we put out as administrative team, the parade of cars that went through Pines, and the different efforts that teachers are undertaking to engage students. We've adopted a Twitter hashtag, HPS Distance Learning, and encouraging teachers to share highlights and such throughout the week. So they're doing that.
Okay,
Yep.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was
I
just
didn't
gonna
mean to interrupt.
that it's so early in our efforts, but we are talking about this nonstop all the time about what is the best way forward. We're learning what other districts are doing. They're calling us, and so yes, it's 2 days in, but we're hyper focused on it.
So I have a couple of questions. First of all, the ancillary things that we're doing, the videos, the sprinkles on top, doing a great. The videos from the schools are cool. That program, the parade rather today was great. So that stuff, it's great for the kids to help them get re-engaged, and it's nice to see everyone's faces again. My one concern, I guess, is there a lack of continuity in how we are administering lessons and engaging with the kids? between either grade levels and or teachers. Are some using some tools and others not using those tools? The lack of standardization, the lack of continuity is a bit concerning for me. Am I reading it right or wrong? And if I'm reading it right, tell me why I shouldn't be worried about that. It feels like a little bit like the Wild West as to how we're delivering instruction.
So I don't think it's the Wild West. I think that our approach has been to collectively work with the teachers, administrators and teachers working together to discuss what are going to be the strategies to employ to engage students with the circumstances that we're dealing with. So when I'm looking at different department data from just the last 24 hours, and I scan it, I'm seeing consistency in approach and consistency in use of tools. Are there, when I look at...
I'm sorry, Don, is that consistency that you're seeing, is that department-wide? Is that grade-wide? Is it building-wide or something else?
It's both, but what I will add is, will there be outliers who are offering up? Well, here's what's consistent, right? What's consistent is we understand the schedules that we've shared with parents and with families. We understand that we're using Google tools. We understand the different, mainly using Google Classroom. Where there's potential variation, I think this is what you're getting at is, are there different flavors of the use of a tool like Google Meet? Yes, there are potentially some different flavors there at the moment, although, again, we believe that by providing opportunities, our teachers are gravitating towards those tools naturally. And again, 2 days in, can I tell you that it's 100%? No, but the evidence to me is compelling that the majority of teachers in these different survey data sheets that I'm looking at are using those tools with fidelity. But
So, yeah, go ahead, Gary. I had a question.
On that topic, weren't we supposed to get, didn't you request, Dave, a list of what the teachers were going to be providing by teacher?
I did. That's what I was gonna ask. Don, at the last meeting, and I think a meeting before that, I had requested a list per teacher of the tools that are being used, or what that teacher's plan was for distance learning, not so much to know what each individual teacher was doing, but more to make sure that student experience was aligned across grades or departments or what have you. Is every earth science teacher delivering the same type of instruction? Are the kids getting the same experience? Is one class or one section getting a better experience because teacher A is using one thing and teacher B is using another thing? That's what I was talking about as far as continuity.
okay, that's helpful that you clarified. I mean, we have created a document which encapsulates what the teachers are doing during the day. I will tell you that this conversation is helpful to understand what you meant by that question. What I would say is, yes, the teachers are working together collaboratively, whether it be on the grade level, the department, or the course. But, I mean, just as if I was walking through a hallway in a building, if it was school, as always, are there different, teaching styles and strategies at play in a virtual classroom? There are. So I don't think that we're going to have one template that is adopted by everybody throughout the district, but where we are consistent is that what you can expect using earth science as your example, that those teachers are looking at their units together, looking at standards, and then sharing lessons that will help students meet learning outcomes.
Are we are we working towards pushing out taped lessons where either the teacher's voice or image, however they're comfortable, is being pushed out to the kids in a live lesson, quote unquote live lesson, being delivered?
Well, yeah,
Or is it just going to be pushing out of assignments?
no, well, I think that there are parents today and yesterday who could say that that's happened already. So, and again, that's what I'm seeing in the data that I'm collecting. I can tell you right now, I'm looking at a document, and I'm not going to mention the department, but it says pre-recorded teacher explanation, pre-recorded teacher explanation. And what did they use? They used they created a video using an app and posted it to Google Classroom. So that's consistent as I'm scanning this one department. When I scan other departments, I'm seeing a bunch of the same narrative. Where there are pockets, we will follow up. We have not mandated that. To be clear, our philosophical approach has been that if we provide the evidence of what will be the most engaging in a hybrid learning environment, that our teachers step up, as they've proven time and time again, and will manage those tools successfully. So if we discover that someone, let's say, did not do that yesterday or today, it could be that they had a technical problem. It could be that they need a little more assistance with PD.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about over a day period, Don, and seeing who and who didn't push out taped or audio assignments or what have you. I'm asking whether we're going to work towards making that the standard, that we're going to say, every instructor should push out 2 or 3 video lessons a week. It's an arbitrary number. I don't know what the right number is, obviously. But the question is, are we trying to standardize that? That's and make that what we strive for. If we agree, hang on, Don. If we agree that that is what's best for kids.
Well, that's a great. Thank you for adding that at the end. I think what we are quickly looking to discover, right, and our parents and students will be the ultimate judge of this, is what is working best, right? So we are having discussions about what is the right blend potentially of recorded video and live streaming and materials that are accessed by students, right? So like a traditional hybrid learning environment. I can tell you this, that no matter what we do, if we standardize with pre-recorded videos, we still are going to have the challenge of the home schedule and the amount of time that we have to organize all of these efforts. So I think it's happening naturally, organically, as I like to say, and the standardization is happening on its own without being heavy-handed because our teachers are doing that.
I'm not talking about heavy-handed. There's got to be a warm-up, right? We're in the warm-up phase.
Yeah.
We're seeing what works and what doesn't work, right? And when I say Wild West, I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that everyone is trying their own little thing to see how it works and see what works best. My question is more direct, is if we agree that these lessons, pushed out lessons, video lessons with the teacher are what's best for kids, shouldn't we be working towards standardizing that and making that a requirement? Not a heavy-handed requirement, but a warm where we are now. And then if that's best for kids, shouldn't we be pushing that out?
Yeah, I'm sorry, you broke
Shouldn't
up.
that be the goal, to work on that?
You broke up.
I'm sorry?
I think I got the gist of it. Yes, and yes, we are doing exactly that. And when I say we, it's happening from the teacher level, and we're looking at this together as an administrative and teacher cohesive group. to respond quickly to what is working best. So yes, I know that what you're asking is, like, listen, there's different teachers, different styles, but when it comes to grade levels, courses, curriculum, that's where there's standardization. Now we're adding the extra flavor of delivering content through digital means only. So you're asking, will that be standardized if it proves to be the most successful to, let's say, have pre-recorded lessons? And I think that we are naturally getting there quickly. And yes, we are going to do what we think is best for kids. And I feel confident speaking for everybody in that sense.
Don, hang on, Gary. Let me just finish, guys. Don, just so you're clear, I'm not talking about stylistic differences. I'm talking about the medium that's being used. Gary, go ahead.
Along those lines, isn't it fair to say that the content area, the subject area, is also going to determine what type of teaching we do? I can see a video with the slide deck being very applicable to math or science, and maybe not so much to an English lit course.
You're absolutely right. I mean, listen, I can tell you that over the weekend, I heard from a number of teachers who I connect with. I'm just thinking now from the math department, there was no way that they were going to have any other approach to this other than doing some sort of screencasting and tutorial videos, because they were concerned about how to deliver math remotely without that mechanism. So, yeah, that would look different than like what I'm experiencing at home with my first grader and what teachers in Hauppauge, how they're approaching, let's say, the K to 3 students. Right? So you're absolutely right. It can look different. There's a blend of strategies, and we want to be consistent with an approach where possible, and yet we're all thankfully connected through the same platform and ecosystem with Google. So there's not too steep a learning curve when it comes to adopting some of these tools.
Don?
Mike, I know you had a question.
Yeah, are we able to, or are we tracking the compliance rate of the students that are, these lessons and these things are getting pushed out? Is there any feedback that we're getting from the students that they're actually doing it?
Yeah, so this is a great question. This is something that came up today. So on one hand, we're all trying to rally and make sure that we just have the richest, most engaging experience possible, but then that's another piece that teachers came back with. What do we do with students who are not logged into Google Classroom, not responding to notifications, etc.? So there's different data I can pull from an administrative level. I'm not sure yet how granular it is to get a sense of, can we track just when a student logs in, or do we know how many minutes they're logged in? Certainly, when they submit an assignment or add a comment, but that is another area, Mike, that we are discussing on how best to handle it. Because again, if we were on site, an assistant principal or principal can walk down the hall, or the teacher would talk to the student, and etc. So that's all done remotely. And honestly, we are logging even traditional phone calls and emails. Just another area where teachers are stepping up. We're capturing all that data. So when they do call home or they do email a parent, we're logging all of that in a sheet just to help to tell the story and to have other data for us to review. But that is
Yeah. We talked about the help desk that was set up. Has that been active past 2 days?
extremely active.
What are we seeing as far as what people need help with?
So I'm going to give some rough numbers. I think Dr. McCarthy told me we had about 150 tickets entered. I'm going to say 30 of them were submitted roughly by teachers. The remainder were students and parents. I think most of them right now, week 1, are related to login questions related to, let's say, ClassLink or Google Classroom that are being resolved remotely by our IT staff at a very fast clip. I will add, if I may, that we're also looking to set up a distance learning form for parents who have general questions for us that they could submit. And Dr. O'Hara and I are looking to set up a Google Meet with the community to ask questions of us at some point next week.
So, Don, do you have a feel, excuse me, even if it's anecdotal at this point, as to what the exchange is between students and teachers as far as questions on content, extra help, whatever, questions on homework? Is there an avenue set up for kids and or their parents to reach out to teachers directly? And if there is, what is the expected turnaround time that we expect or that we ask the teachers to get back to the kid or the parent?
So it does depend on the level, because, in the upper grades, sometimes teachers are communicating with students and parents directly through email. What Google Classroom allows for is commenting to the class as a whole, or a student could add a private comment. And so if the student did not want, let's say, the rest of his classmates to know the question, they offer up a private comment. Our expectation for teachers is for them to be as responsive as they've always been. So I can't say we said you must answer back within the hour, but I think our teachers' antennas are up and have been extremely responsive. That was some of the feedback I received, actually, that teachers were finding this to be relentless, not in a complaining way, but it's different when you're sitting in front of 20 students who are asking questions as opposed to 20 comments coming in. Now you're typing answers and stuff. So I think that's where, again, they'll find their groove, and some of them may end up gravitating towards using something like Google Meet, where it's a streaming only option, so that students can see the teacher, but the students could not see each other, and maybe they will pose questions that way. Again, I leave it up to the professionals. Like, they'll figure out what works best for them. They may get overwhelmed trying to answer 50 texts through Google Classroom and say, you know what, guys, I'm going to offer up a Q&A this Thursday. Let's all hop on. But again, and I'm sorry, I know I'm going on a little bit, we're trying to be thoughtful about the home, what's going on around us. That if mom and dad are home because they're now been forced to work from home, and let's say dad needs to use the laptop at some point of the day and mom another point, if we say that live teaching or live office hours are only at this time, that could prove challenging for some people at home. So we're hoping to find that balance, and that may happen at the classroom level as teachers learn their students' habits best. Dr. Kraft, I see that you talked.
Yeah, I had a quick question. With the teachers, I know some of their time might be limited. All the questions are coming in at different times. To me, my biggest concern, because I don't think this is going to go on for another week. We have to be ready for this to last the rest of the school year. My biggest concern is the lack of true instruction time, and I know we have limitations that we're all talking about. How much more time do we give it before we really come up with an enhanced program here where the kids can get true instruction? So I'm very concerned about subjects like math and science, where, right now we've got some assignments that I'm seeing with my kids, but I'm looking for true instruction. Some of this stuff is over my head at this point, and I can't teach it myself. And my other question is, the teachers, I don't expect them to be on until 9 o'clock at night answering questions, but some parents, like myself, who come home late from work but still working, are exhausted if my kid needs some help with school work, and I come home and I'm not sure how to do it, and we've lost another day. Are there certain hours that the teachers are told that they're expected to be available, even if it's not their quote-unquote on day? We're doing a day one teaching system like middle school, high school.
Well, no, let me answer your second question first. The structure at the secondary level is much more meant for the student in terms of how they're accessing work. It doesn't mean that if on day 2 a student is focused on math and science, as an example, that the social studies and English teachers are not monitoring Google Classroom, just to be clear. Our teachers are working every day. One of the reasons we didn't lock in, let's say, hours of availability, and this was a point brought up actually by the teachers themselves, is, we have teachers who do respond naturally after hours. So if we said, this is when you're responding back, then that sounds reaching too. So I guess what I would say is, in general, just as a parent would reach out to a teacher if they're confused about something and not sure where to get an answer, they would do the same thing here. Use the teacher's email. Student can hop onto Google Classroom and add a comment. And I'm quite confident that responses would be forthcoming.
Do you think if we had to do this kind of instruction the remainder of the year, are you confident that the kids will learn enough that they can go on to the next grade level after the summer school is likely to resume in the fall, and not be really left in the dust with some of the more difficult subjects?
Yeah, well, again, I just want to put everyone's mind that, I don't know if that ease is the right word, but we had a long talk today about exactly these challenges, right? So let's put aside a second the delivery methods, and let's just talk about the fact that right now kids are not, attending school for 9 periods a day, and taking 7 different, courses throughout the day, regardless if the courses were recorded or if they were live. We would have to be a bit picky. And these are the conversations that we're having internally about preparing our job, regardless of what the state does with Regents, right? So if we end the year with a Regents exam or not, our job is to prepare students for next year. So could it mean, Larry, that we take the remainder of the scope and sequence and we focus on those foundational standards that are going to make kids the most successful? Could it mean that we have to put some other supports in place? Could it mean that we aren't able to offer the complete Hauppauge catalog of courses the rest of the year? I guess we have to look at all of that because we're completely focused on exactly what you just asked, which is we got to make sure that we prepare kids for next year. So I did want to go back to your first question because I didn't want to forget.
Sorry.
You asked about when are we going to decide on recorded lessons. I think the decision has happened again, kind of already without a dictate from me or Dennis or anybody else. So again, when I look at the data, and this is 2 days in, but the majority of teachers are doing exactly that, and so I think it's happening, and we'll continue to review it every day to see if that's something we need to work closely with the teachers on, to see those that aren't naturally gravitating towards an approach that is going to be the most successful. We'll circle back with them to find out if something is holding them back.
Well, let me ask you a question. I know technology and availability might be an issue for certain kids and families, but a lot of my work is now being done by Zoom. And we have the ability to share screens, show data on, our computers to each other, or even from a whiteboard. Would there be any issue with people breaking into meetings like that if we were trying to do a live lesson where the teacher got on with their students on a Zoom meeting platform and actually had a sort of a live classroom with the kids and really had some, instruction that's much closer to what we're used to in the classroom?
So Zoom itself. Well, let me talk about Zoom and Google
It doesn't have to be Zoom, any platform like that.
Are there risks? Yes.
You have to have a login ID and a password. So, for someone to say, well, someone could break into it and show something they're not supposed to. Is that a risk of, something like Zoom?
I don't think. Listen, there's some war stories out there, and but I think that like anything, the war stories that I've heard about were much more user negligence, not purposefully, obviously, but someone, let's say, shared a link that they didn't realize could be shared again, and someone offered it up on a chat, and someone who shouldn't have, connected in. I look at this a couple of ways. I look at the use of video in terms of like a T-chart, right? Upside and downside. And there's two main parties involved, right? Like teachers and students. So if you look at, let's say, upside and downside for teachers. Well, the upside is, let's start with the downside. The downside is someone could take the video of me right now on Facebook, manipulate my image, do something that they shouldn't with it, and post it, right? So that's a risk that always exists when you have your image out. There's also a risk that I make a mistake. As a teacher, I do share a link, and I don't put proper controls in place, like you asked about. But the upside is I can connect with students. I have a chance to check for understanding, in the moment. Students can get feedback. You can do assessments in the moment. You can clear up confusion. So I think the upside outweighs the downside. And I can say the same thing for the other party involved here, which are students. The upside outweighs the downside. So I don't dismiss some of these war stories. They're out there, and I get it. But I think that, and I know that our teachers are finding, they've also heard these war stories, and yet when I look at the data today, I think it's 80% of our teachers did some sort of video component to their lessons today. So,
Don, my opinion is if we continue with what we're doing this week, and I know we're just starting, we're going to ramp it up. You always look at the way it's improved.
Yep.
But I think the kids are not going to get nearly what they need to get if we continue with this through June. And I know we're looking to get better. So my thinking is I'm looking for something as close to the real classroom as possible. To me, that's the way. If people are worried about their kids' images being on these things, you don't have to show the video on the kids. You can just have the teacher. They can be there instructing the class. I think that's just so vital with math. These videos, instructional things. To me, it's just almost like you're, half of it's self-taught in that way. So, to have a really, I guess, full understanding of things like math, and I keep focusing on math because it's the most important for math class. I think we have to eventually go to something like that if we're not going back to school this year.
I just want to make sure I confirm what you're saying. So videotaped lessons that are posted to Google Classroom is not what you're talking about.
I'm talking about a class.
A live, like this, like we're having right now.
Just like this. I can go back to Zoom, that's what I'm used to with work. I can see everybody's face on one screen, at least up to 10 to 12 people. You get a look at their face if you need to, but, all the kids could be there, and instead of interrupting the teacher, we can type comments to each other to the person presenting, so you don't interrupt, and then you can see, so-and-so has a question. It's a really useful tool for the meetings that we're having, and I can see it being really useful for math. I'm just not thinking that, the videos, and if the kid doesn't fully understand it, then yes, getting back to the teacher one-on-one, it's going to be a long, long day for the teachers to start answering all these questions, as opposed to having an abbreviated lesson. If there was an hour for math one day in the regular school day, we're doing this remote learning, maybe it's a half hour because the questions are going to come in slower. It's going to be a little longer to answer. But at least we're having some real instruction. If we don't have real instruction, and this goes through June, I don't see us succeeding in this. That's just my opinion.
I understand. And the only thing I would add to that is I go back to if we were to figure out a way to have a blend of live experiences, recorded lessons, and then obviously content available to students on Classroom, then what that would, we started talking about, even what that would look like would have to be really staggered and spread out because, again, we're at the mercy of 2,000 Hauppauge households, each with different schedules. So if we said, every Monday at 9 o'clock is going to be math, it couldn't be that you had a full day every day of live teaching because like this wouldn't work all day long, right? Like, so we'd have to be very selective about that.
I'm not suggesting all day long. I'm suggesting it absolutely has to be integrated for the, and I'm not trying to put down other subject areas.
No,
But there are subjects where you just cannot teach them through videos. It needs to have real instruction. Math being number one in my eyes. That's just my opinion. And I don't think if we don't find a way to do that, and maybe now the teachers, say all the sixth grade math teachers, do it together, and all the sixth grade students are expected to be on at the same time for an hour Monday, an hour Wednesday, and an hour Friday. It's going to be better than not having any live instruction. Without live instruction, if we're not heading towards that, in my opinion, we're heading for a disaster. And then my only solution at that point would be, what does the state look at? If kids aren't ready to move on, we're not going to hold kids back. Are we going to have summer school for everybody? I don't think people want that option. And honestly, with this pandemic, we can't predict that the summer is going to be safe anyway.
Thank you. I appreciate the authentic feedback, Larry.
Anyone else, Stacy?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, well, thank you for all the information tonight, Don and everybody. I think that there's also a learning curve for the teachers. I know, just as the kids and the parents have been thrown into it, this is a brand new type of teaching for teachers. And, I know at least in my district, the teachers are working round the clock trying to get everything going, trying to upload everything, trying to make sure all the kids have gotten on. And so day 2 is great. And I understand what you're saying, Larry. I really do. I just think that, I believe they're probably working harder than ever trying to get this going and trying to get it going because they don't want the kids to fail. And it's a lot for them too.
I don't doubt that. I think our teachers are wonderful. But you know what?
I know.
We're going to have 3 months to figure it out. So now we're going to have a lot of smart teachers that can figure it out in a week. I don't think we can make more than another week because we've already missed 2 or 3 weeks. To get this right, I really think we could start maybe with one subject area like math. Let's try it. We've got to get it going.
No, I know.
Any other board members have questions concerning distance learning?
I do.
Gary?
Okay, particularly at the high school level and specifically with AP courses, now that College Board, well, it's not for that reason, but College Board has published what the curriculum will be as far as content on the AP test at the end of this year. I get the impression, and maybe I'm wrong and maybe it's too early, that a lot of the teachers are going to teach to the content of the test, which in my mind is going to leave 25 to 30% of the curriculum not being covered in some kind of instructive fashion. That concerns me a bit because, we got kids going from, a lot of these kids are juniors, they're going to be seniors next year, or their seniors are going to be in college next year, and they're going to be missing a big part of the foundation with regard to these subjects if we approach it that way. Now, maybe we're not, but that's kind of the signal I'm hearing. But I'm looking at the College Board list, and pretty much all of the subjects are cutting off about 25% of the curriculum in terms of test content for the end of the year. So, you get a kid who maybe does well on the AP test and gets a college credit for it, but only has 75% of the knowledge in their pocket when they're going off to college, and I think that's a disservice to them. So how are we addressing that, Don?
Yeah, I know you asked about this last time. Let me just check my date here. It's the 3rd. I think this Friday, the 3rd, College Board is coming out with a detailed plan about their approach. Thus far, we know that they're offering, online options. Can I ask you? You said this is what you're hearing. Are you're hearing this from teachers or?
I'm hearing it from my daughter.
Okay. I listen. I don't want to speak for teachers yet before I dive deeper into the discussion with directors and teachers. I think this news from College Board is breaking news, right? So they're faced with, here we are, we're now all home, we're doing it virtually, the exams are online, and we of course want the students to be successful, and I'm probably repeating what I said last time, but we also don't want them to miss out on anything in terms of content and being prepared for college and beyond. So I think we have those dual goals in mind. You're right, the College Board's approach, and I kind kind of get it, is if we're going to allow for this online experience, we have to offer an exam that would cover the content up to a certain moment in time, which would be somewhere around March, second week of March when all this broke. So I have no concern that our teachers are going to take any shortcuts. I think that they will have two goals: to prepare students to do well on the AP exams, and then to make sure we finish the year the right way. However, it is different, right? Because we are right now trying to structure students' time with the complete course load in mind, and that's why we've split up the days. So we will need to be selective on topics that we put across all the
Right. I understand what you're saying, Don. I don't disagree with you, but one of the concern couples kind of back into what Larry was saying and the amount of instruction time we have. A lot of the classes, and I've seen this many times, a lot of the classes barely get time to finish the curriculum before they have the AP test. Some of them finish early and they have time for review. But if you start to go into a review process before you finish the curriculum, given the fact that we're recommending, a couple hours a day of equivalent instruction time, there's no way, even if they wanted to finish the curriculum, they're going to get there with that level of participation by the students. You just can't do it.
Well, yeah, and I'll just tie this conversation to another one. This is part of the reason why we're not rushing into a decision on grading and going to pass fail. Some districts have done that, and I think it's an optic that is you have to be real concerned with, because when you go pass fail, I think it just changes the potential fidelity of your instructional program. And so, listen, we're talking about AP, we're talking about IB. We have still the same goals as a district, which is increase the number of IB diploma candidates and AP scholars. And then beyond that, it's we preparing students for college and career. I think we'll have much more to share on this after Friday about our approach. And again, we're going to need to have some philosophical discussions as a district about our focus on those courses and others, because we're going to, there's a lot of layers to these conversations.
Thanks.
Dr. Murphy, if I may ask, what about electives such as art and all these other classes? How will students still take those classes? Will that become pass or fail, or?
Well, we haven't decided if we would be selective with, like some districts are approaching, let's say, pass-fail, but only, maybe at the elementary level. I could tell you that what I'm very proud of, and this is from Dr. Landor and Mr. Butler, we were a district that quickly had Google Classroom set up, music, art, phys ed, health, all the electives. We have students who have joined those Google Classrooms, and our teachers are working hard in those areas as well. But yes, we'll be looking, at everything when it comes to grading philosophy. We should have, I would suspect that by the time we meet again next week, we'll either have decided, we may have decided it, or we will be that much closer to sharing with the board our current thinking. I just think that each day right now is like a dog year in terms of information that's coming out, and that will guide. We don't want to make a rush decision, but we recognize we have to make a decision in this conversation pretty quickly.
Dr. Murphy, if I may ask one more question. We always should hope for the best and plan for the worst. God forbid, come September, we're still at home. Are we going to have to start planning for that now, or is that something we're going to have enough time to plan for come September with a new grade starting, as Dr. Crafter pointed out?
If we're in the same place come September, our summer as a group of educators things will look far different as far as I'm concerned. Like, if we're starting a school year like this, then I think it gives us and I think we'd have guidance from the state and understanding about things like seat time and credits. I think it would look a bit different, and I think I feel fortunate we're poised, right? We're a district that has iPads, and in 5th grade we were able to deploy Chromebooks. Just quick update for the board, we deployed over 150 Chromebooks already, and I think we're close to another 100 that are going out this week. So we're at a position where we can safely say that our students will have access to devices. We helped a few students with Wi-Fi as well. So I think we're a district, Rob, that will be ready to roll if that's where this is headed.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy.
You got it?
Further comments or questions from the board concerning distance learning?
I have another question if I can. I hate to keep going back to this about, live lessons. But Don, can you give me an idea, a typical, say, math teacher in the 7th grade, how many classes a day do they teach? And is it the same lesson for every student on a regular school day?
Teacher has 5 sections, 5 classes a day.
So they're all 7th graders that are teaching the same lesson?
Well, no, it could be that they could be a teacher who's teaching 3 sections of Math 7 and 2 sections of Math 8.
But would it be more than 2? If they, like now, a 7th grade math teacher, do they have to address more than 2 sets of learners?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely teachers, not likely in the scenario you're describing, but it could be that, yes, they have a couple of sections of grade 7 and a couple of grade 8, and then they're also doing AIS, so technically that would be 3 specials.
And the point I'm getting to is, if we're not going to do maybe a true live class where they're instructing for an hour to an audience, if they were to videotape a lesson, a half-hour lesson, a 45-minute lesson, and post the actual video, and then they have the remainder of the day, because they're not teaching 5 periods or 6 periods, if it takes them an hour to do the video, to figure out how to upload it and do the video, they would have the remainder of the day to help students with questions. I'm really harping on the fact that if we don't get true action, and it's not just our district, all districts are going to fail. We're cheating the kids. So let me ask you this. Is it possible, do you see it coming that where we may have to, as a board, ask this to be done or mandated to the teachers, and how do you think that would be received? I can't see not having true either live instruction or at least videotape lessons.
Well, let me ask you a question, if I may. Today, we're Tuesday. As a parent, what did you experience with the distance learning?
So I came home from the hell that we call the hospital in my office right now with patients, and my one kid, and this is not a knock on the teachers. I know they're trying to push them forward, but he had a test today, and they've been off for a couple weeks without any instruction. It was a rough day. That made it rough. Okay. So maybe that was just to wake them up and see where they're at right now and what they've been doing. Trust me, we've been trying to do as much as we can at home these 2 weeks and not give them a vacation for 2 to 3 weeks. But, I see the teachers are going nuts, answering back and forth to different comments. Like my one kid was in 3rd grade, they're on the Seesaw platform. And the teacher was going back and forth with every child, and you could see a lot of the comments they were making, going back and forth and answering things all day long. So I see some good things, and I see some things that I know are going to need to be enhanced. And I'm, once again, going to go back to math and science. I'm just wondering, I don't want it to take too long that we have some true instruction. Assignments are great, but we need true instruction. I haven't seen that yet.
Okay, I will tell you that I take your feedback very seriously. We all do, and I can tell you that there is true instruction going on right now. So just give me perhaps we can revisit this in a couple of days. If you have questions, I'd hate to make a statement even about your feedback after a few days that I don't want to speak for the teacher. Maybe the assessment was given, as you said, to get a sense of where the students were at. I think we to guide the teacher's lesson for Thursday, right? or for tomorrow. But the feedback I'm getting has been very positive in terms of what the teachers are doing to prepare. So whether we need to,
You got that feedback from parents, Don, or from the teachers?
well, I've gotten it from both, but to be completely honest, I haven't surveyed all parents. We are going to provide a mechanism for parents to provide feedback.
You really think I'm in the minority? You haven't gotten feedback from parents that they're worried about getting through instruction? I'm very...
No. I think that all parents want instruction for their children, no doubt about it. But I believe that many parents have seen the last 2 days that they've gotten a blend of opportunities, which include either recorded lessons, videos, support. So I know for a fact that some teachers have done.
Maybe this goes back to what Dave was saying. We have to look at the consistency and uniformity across grades. Because if we don't really, and I know you're looking at the data for that, but maybe this is coming on the heels of being off for 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm just anxious to get going. I feel like we're missing time, that they're behind, and I don't see an end to the pandemic anytime soon. So I'm really concerned about going forward, what kind of instruction they're going to get.
And we were in a different position a little bit because, I think some districts, I know we didn't look at it this way because it didn't feel this way, but the last 2 weeks weren't really, it was like it was a vacation, but not really. No, we went on vacation, right? So this is really our second day back after a break, and I do feel pretty good about where we're going. I can just tell you and the rest of the board and the community, this is all we're talking about all the time. So we are just laser focused on getting this right. I just want you to know that.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments from the board concerning distance learning? All right, if you could just, that information the board asked for concerning individual teachers, what tools they're using, so on and so forth, can you get that to us before the next meeting?
Can I just have some clarification? I just want to make sure that I provide the right product. What are you expecting to see? A spreadsheet with each teacher's name on it? I'm confused a little bit.
I'd like to be able to see across grade level or across department how the teachers are instructing the kids, whether it's uniform or not, whether intervention should be made by administration as to whether one teacher is doing it better or utilizing the technology better than another, or so on and so forth. Just curiosity as to where we are, and I think more data than not is good in a situation like this where we are all experiencing this for the first time.
So I think I have a sense of what you want, and we are collating data. So the board is interested in saying, okay, I'm making this up. 3rd grade teachers in this building are all using Google Classroom and using Google Meet, and they're using the different tools that show.
Sorry to interrupt you. Personally, I'm more concerned about the secondary level than I am the elementary level. I would like to see not necessarily grade-based, but department-based.
Understood.
What we're doing, because I think we should try to have the kids have the same or as close to the same experience as possible. Not talking about stylistics, I'm talking about how it's being delivered.
And to that point, can we overlay what I discussed before, the student feedback and if there's a correlation between the method of instruction and the student's ability to respond and do what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, well, the use of the tool would indicate what is possible, right? So I think I understand whether I'm able to mine the data to show how students are engaging in these tools. I don't know that I would be able to provide that, but I'll do my best to get data that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the board has a good feel for what the 10,000-foot view is of what we want to do, but we want to try to drill down a little bit more granularly, as Tim McCarthy likes to say, to see where we are on that level. So,
Gotcha, thank you.
thank you. Anything further from the board on distance learning?
Yeah, I have a very specific question, Don, with regard to AP, and maybe there's no way to work around this because I think it's a bit of a legal issue. One of the things that's always been done in the past is kids were able to do some level of review in school, but they were only able to do it in school because they were using AP assets that were not allowed out of the building. You know what I'm talking about? In terms of tests. Now that they're home,
Yeah.
I don't think that's possible unless College Board gives some special dispensation to allow that stuff to be shown remotely or something.
That guidance may be forthcoming on Friday as well, but I've written it down, Gary, and I'll circle back with you and find out the news of it.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yep.
Anything further from the board on distance learning? Anything further from administration on distance learning?
Dave, yeah, I just would like to add some comments. I'd like our board to know that we appreciate everybody's questions tonight, and we certainly share your sense of urgency. Don has been fantastic working through this. The directors and Don and I, and Carolyn and Joe and Jackie are participating in daily virtual meetings with the administrators to try to get our heads around everything that you're asking. I think all your questions are right on target. So we definitely share your sense of urgency, and we will not be letting COVID-19 and our mandated school closure be the thing that makes us take our foot off the gas. We have a moral imperative toward our students. We just want you to know we share your views.
Yeah, and guys, from the board's point of view, we're going to give you as much support as you need, as long as the focus remains on what's best for kids. So we're all in this together. We have pointed questions because, one, we have kids in the district, and two, we're removed from this even a step further than everyone else. We all have our own jobs and our own lives going on, and we're trying to, not being there and not being able to talk in person is tough for us as well. This being the only way we can communicate, it's awkward and sometimes tough to make sure that we're all on the same page, but I believe we are.
Okay, and I probably should add too that, we know it's only our second day with the distance learning, but I can also reassure the board that every conversation I've had with faculty members, that their questions are in the right place. And once we get the kinks worked out, I think that they're going to be I know they're fully committed now, but I think that they're going to be working really, really hard. They don't want to see their students backslide either.
Good, great. All right, anything further on distance learning at all? Sorry, did someone say something? Okay, new business. Do any board members have new business?
Dave, I have a couple of things, if that's okay.
Yep, please, Mr. Cerrito.
Okay, the first, I have four subjects. Subject number one is Mrs. Pirro. With the business park and the state possibly not getting as much money to the school, is that something we have to start planning on for the budget since it's the budget season? And do you want me to continue, Dave, or just do a question at a time, sir?
Jackie, you answer that?
Yes, we are under consideration for sure with what Cuomo has recently stated about school aid. I'm thinking that we should be getting something tomorrow. His budget's due tomorrow, and we anticipate a shortfall for sure.
Does that, Mrs. Pirro, what about the business park? I believe we get like 51 cents of the dollar for our tax money from the business park. I would assume, unfortunately, that most of the business park is closed down, but I may be wrong.
I have not received any confirmation yet from either Islip or Smithtown on the pilot payments that we received.
Okay. Mrs. Pirro, on, or maybe Dr. O'Hara, with the food program right now, I know we are feeding some students, and I think that's fantastic. do we have to keep the full food contract in place since we're not having full meals for every student?
Currently, we are operating under the current contract. It does not harm the district. It is not beneficial for the food service provider whatsoever. Whitson's is the provider that currently does our food service program. Council has been in touch with the companies who run the food service programs for the district. Since we outsource it for us, it is not necessarily an issue for us. It is a financial hardship for the food service companies, but they are meeting their obligations per the contract.
Mrs. Kiro, as far as the special ed contracts, as far as BOCES and stuff like that, where some students get in-home stuff in their home and stuff like that, if that's not continuing, where are we with that stuff?
Some of that is going to start to look differently. Perhaps Dr. Murphy can speak to that, but honestly, it's just going to be looked differently how they handle those types of relationships and those agreements that we currently have. Some of the vendors have sent us additional agreements to allow them to work remotely or virtually as we're doing here, and council has those documents for review, but we don't have any final conclusion on that as of yet.
And then the last question I had, Dr. O'Hara, is I've got a couple of phone calls and emails, and the junior prom, I believe, is April 25th. Do we want to comment on that tonight's meeting, or are we just gonna? I think we have to give parents and students as much preparation as possible, and stuff like that, sir.
Yeah, as far as comments, I could offer conjecture that these events will be canceled or postponed. This morning or this afternoon, I asked Mr. Cook and people at the high school to gather up any contracts we have with vendors and venues so that we can see what we have to do if it becomes necessary to cancel any contracts. So we'll have a definite answer, by the end of this week or our next meeting.
I just want to thank the administration through these tough times. I think you guys are doing a fantastic job, and as a board member, the only thing I ask is we try to plan a little ahead because we're going to need to save as many dollars as we can. We owe that to our community, and our students. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Jackie, do we have any expectation for when the budget vote will be?
As of right now, it's been delayed to after June 1st. So we are waiting details on the pieces that surround the budget vote, right? So this week we would have had to put it into the newspaper that we have a budget vote on May 19th. We did not do that as we've received guidance that it's been shifted backwards. We do not yet have dates any more specific than that. Legal counsel might still be on the call. They might be able to chime in with any additional information that I may not yet know.
Legal counsel, any inside information?
What you said, Jackie, is correct, and the guidance was just that the postponement of the vote applied to the budget as well, and I'm sure you saw that guidance as well as the trustee elections. That's the latest information.
So, Jackie, do we have any information or expectation that we're going to need any kind of bridge money or hands?
On the next agenda, you'll see a request for TANs for the board. So April 7th, typically we do it in May anyway. It's permission just to ask the board for the ability to borrow money should we need to. The ability to borrow that kind of money, however, banks right this second aren't really lending either. Interest rates, as you know, have declined, and our compensating balances in the bank accounts we even have grown substantially. So right now, I have not received confirmation, but we're looking at every source of revenue that we do have to contemplate how stable that revenue is for this current year, the cash coming in, and going forward. We did receive a large state aid payment today that we were supposed to get. We did get. We got $3 million today that we expected as part of our state aid payment for this year. So that was good. But going forward, we really don't know yet I will put the TAN authorization on the agenda for next Tuesday anyway, so we have the ability to go to borrow should we need to.
Right, I mean, it seems like there's probably a good possibility that they're going to push back taxes in general, payment of taxes, payment of property taxes, what have you. So there's a possibility we could need to borrow to make up any gap.
There is definitely a possibility.
What are the interest rates on TANs now? Do we know?
They're really low. I spoke to a financial advisor yesterday or the day before, he emailed me over the weekend to let me know that most districts that we were all looking to get approvals in the month of April to borrow, the rates are down currently even to borrow, but the bids that are going out to the banks to bid on these TANs, people aren't even responding right now. It's so unknown this week, last week, that the banks aren't currently bidding to even do the borrowing. So they're looking at alternative ways to get cash in should we need to.
Okay. And Mr. Garrido touched on it a little bit, but, you know, Governor Cuomo said that, you know, the state's practically bankrupt, and, you know, it was the front page of Newsday, I think yesterday or the day before, that schools are going to feel the big brunt of the cuts. How in the world are we going to prepare a budget without having any idea what our state aid is going to be, or if there's going to be
I'm
any
hoping
state aid?
we will have an idea. I'm hoping. Should he get his budget out this week, I anticipate roughly 10% of aid to be cut for our district. The rough estimates going around my circles are somewhere between 5 and 15% reduction to our current aid estimates that we received in January. Remember, we get a state estimate in January of each year, and typically we get one the first week of April 1st. So should he get that out this week, as he said he planned on, we will likely see a significantly reduced number in that state aid run. It'll just be our decision to then either use that number or cut it slightly deeper, anticipating that his won't be able to make whole on that going forward into the quarters that move on.
10% of what? What was our total state aid last year?
About 16 million, so we're looking at 1.6 million, maybe 10%.
I guess we'll see what he says, right?
Yeah, it's step by step at this point, unfortunately. But
Okay. So when will we have our first budget hearing? If we're talking about, are we going to wait until the date is set for the budget vote to start having hearings?
we can have it as soon as we know what the number is. So at any time the board is ready, we have a budget that is already set for 2021. However, a cut that size throws kind of a wrench into it. So we have to then decide, what gets affected, how do we make up that revenue, and what our plan of action will be. And then then we start doing the budget presentation.
Are our tenants in Whippoorwill still paying rent?
As of right now, yes. However, they're not receiving income, nor are, many of the tenants that are there because they're closed. The one preschool is open. My understanding is they had 4 students enrolled for the month of April. So it's going to be a small business issue for them. The other school is partially state run. They haven't been open at all. So it's all concerning, right? So I don't know. Legally, I've had the contracts reviewed by council. Legally, we should be okay. Whether or not the cash there is another conversation for these businesses.
Question. Jackie, would relief on the tax cap help? And has there been any discussion in Albany that you know of relative to that?
I have not heard a peep about the tax cap budging at all.
Okay.
In future years, perhaps, if there's TRS or ERS surge, there's an exclusion in the tax cap the way it's built, but not right now, as I know.
Dennis, you were up there, up in Albany a few weeks ago. There was no chance, they said, of any kind of tax cap relief?
No, as a matter of fact, this is all before the pandemic, but all they ever say is exactly the opposite, that it will never change. When I was in Albany, it was prior to the big outbreak in New York.
Gotcha.
And there was no mention of it. No mention of it in Saturday's hour-long video conference with the commissioner and the school boards.
No, if anything, it would seem antithetical to what's happening anyway. You know, I don't think he's going to save schools and let us tax. Exactly.
No, probably not, especially with unemployment going through the roof.
Right. It's going to be an interesting budget season, I guess. All right, Gary, did you have any more questions?
No, that was it.
Anything else from the board as far as new business goes? Anything from administration, new business?
Not tonight, except for just, thank you for, pledging your support earlier. It's really important, that up and down the chain, everybody is together. We have to work really hard together to, come out with the best outcome.
Dave,
Yeah.
just want to add, it's been a complete team effort behind the scenes. I can't overstate it. The administrative group, the teachers, teaching assistants, aides, everybody has been coming forward to try to help in any way possible through this. So I just think everyone needs to be recognized. Buildings and grounds, bus drive, IT staff, everybody. And I'm sure I'm leaving people out, so forgive me if you're listening at home. But everybody's been trying to figure out the best way forward to help kids and to help the community.
Yeah, listen, I think as a district, we've been a step ahead in this whole crisis. And Larry's point, I think we want to maintain our advantage, and be prepared for this possibly being longer than everyone's anticipating. So.
Mr. Barshik, as far as
Yeah.
the questions the community may have, sir, are we going to touch on that, sir, how they may communicate with us, sir?
Yeah, so I had the district clerk post on Facebook a link where people could submit questions to the board. I've had the form open the whole meeting, and we've had one question, which is from a district employee, so I'm not going to read that out loud. I'm just going to forward it to Dr. Murphy. But other than that, we're obviously not as interesting as we thought we were. There's no other questions. But for our next meeting, and we're going to have these meetings every Tuesday, there is a link on the Facebook page where you could submit a question to the board, and as time allows, we will answer that question or have administration answer that question during the meeting live. Anything further?
Dave, we'll also add that link to the board section of the website.
Great, thank you. Anything further from anyone? So with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting. We'll have our next meeting next Tuesday, executive session at 7:30, public session at 8 o'clock. Mr. Scarito makes the motion, Mr. Fortmeyer seconds. Is there a discussion? Seeing none, I vote aye. Rob Scarito?
Aye.
Rob Scarito votes aye. Gary?
Aye.
Gary votes aye. Larry?
Aye.
Larry votes aye. Mr. Kiley?
Aye.
Mr. Kiley votes aye. Mr. Buscarino?
Aye.
Mr. Buscarino votes aye. And Ms. Weisberg?
Aye.
Ms. Weisberg votes aye. 7-0. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.